Welcome back to my channel. I'm James, and today we're going to be deep diving into Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory. And this is Kirk Douglas, basically war film that I kind of have a hard time saying anti-war because I feel like a lot of people kind of misunderstood some of the point of it just a little bit, because to me it's more or less a film of him basically pointing out the errors and inaccuracies that sometimes man gets involved with their own glory into thinking that somehow they're above how other people are treated, or, you know, when a command comes in through war that maybe, you know, they didn't think it through if it was actually logical or should be done that way. And that's where I do think this is a thought-provoking war movie. Well, today we're going to be doing my exclusive 4K versus the Criterion Collection Blu Ray image comparison. So I'm going to be doing 4K versus Blu Ray image comparisons that I do exclusively here on this channel. Tell you my thoughts on the film a little more, and then I'm going to tell you the specs and all my exclusive testing. And at the end, I always wrap it up with my review score to let you know how this compares to the hundreds of other 4Ks I've exclusively tested over the years. So you always want to make sure to stick around to the end of each review so you get that total review score, so you know what the quality of this is and if this is worth something picking up and buying, or if it's something you should skip altogether. Now, in today's video, we're also going to be talking about Bright Victory, the first time released on Blu-ray by Kino Lorber. We're also going to talk about So Proudly We Hail, again, another new early release from Kino Lorber, and all of these were sent to me for early review from Kino Lorber. So big shout out to them. I'm super excited to be getting things in for a review from them as well. Just another company that I work with that's added to the repertoire of reviews that I do here on this channel. So all of this stuff that was sent today is all for review from Kino Lorber. So a lot of these are really early, several weeks early. But I'm going to do at the end of this video, touch on these Blu-rays as well, do some mini reviews. Something new I'm giving all of you by giving you some more content, just some mini reviews talking about each one as well. And then we're also going to touch on the adventures of Super Dave. I'm going to touch on that at the end here and kind of let you know my thoughts on that as well. Now, to start off with here, I'm going to show you the Paths of Glory Criterion Collection Blu-ray release image up here. Now, as always, this is the image that's unfiltered, that's pulled directly from these discs. So keep in mind when you're watching this video, if you're watching this in full 4K, it will give you the better representation of what you're going to see difference-wise. Just keep in mind, YouTube only does standard HDR for the 4K images when I get to that, so it will dumb everything down. Since this has Dolby Vision on the 4K, it will dumb those down. So it's a representation. It's never going to be 100% perfect, and I've talked about that for years and years on this YouTube channel, but it does give you the best idea and best representation to give you an idea of, hey, is this something that's actually worth an upgrade? Or is it something that's not really that much of an upgrade over the Blu-ray? Well, talking about the Blu-ray here from Criterion Collection, in comparison to the new Kino Lorber 4K Ultra HD release of Paths of Glory, there is a lot of noticeable changes that you'll see in those images above. For example, on the original Criterion Collection release, it looked good. They did a lot of basically spot correction and tears and smudges, and overall it was the best, obviously, Paths of Glory had looked ever previously before. Well, in comparison to this new 4K Ultra HD from Kino Lorber, really stepped it up to another level with the dark, deep, inky black areas without adding in any black crush. And that's something I always kind of look for, is when they add these HDR gradings, like this does have HDR10 and Dolby Vision. Does that add where it adds in black crush, or can you still see in the dark? It's just the dark areas that are actually black are now inky black. Well, I'm happy to report with Paths of Glory, it does look really good in the dark scenes. And there's a lot of them because a lot of them take place in like tunnels or dark bunkers and things like that of war scenes that are throughout the film. Well, it does a really good job without getting into the black crush side of it, which is a good upgrade over what basically you had on that Criterion Collection Blu-ray. But the other big changes that I did notice in this is, on the Criterion Collection Blu-ray, it did have quite a bit of heavy grain fluctuation throughout it. Now, on that grain fluctuation, what that is from the scans and things, if not done correctly when it's transferred to digital and obviously put onto disc, things like that, if not done correctly, it can cause like severe grain fluctuation. Well, on the original Blu-ray from Criterion Collection, it did have more grain fluctuation throughout it that was more noticeable, kind of like a flickering effect of the grain that was just kind of instabilities throughout it. I am happy to report on this new Paths of Glory from Kino Lorber, a lot of that was fixed and is not nearly as heavily noticeable on this as it was on Criterion Collections, as well as they did fix quite a few more spots and smudges and small little tears and flickers that were all throughout different sides of the screen when you're watching the movie. There's a lot more of those even fixed on this that Kino Lorber went through with the new 4K scan of the original camera negatives. And I think Kino Lorber did a great job with this, taking kind of basically, in my opinion, what Criterion Collection started with, working with that and basically doing even more to improve this picture so much more. Now the details, obviously being a black and white film, there is so much more detail that comes through in like their uniforms, the dirt on them, and a lot of scenes that come through so great with this new 4K scan of the original camera negative, because this is a native 4K 2160p representation. So it's not dumbed down, it's not a 2K, it's a native 4K. So you do get so much more detail that comes through, because obviously it was filmed on film, it just comes through so much nicer on this 4K, even more so than that Criterion Collection Blu Ray did. Now, if after you get done watching this review and get to my review score, you decide you want to pick up any of these things I'm talking about in this video, as always, I have them linked in the description section and as a pinned comment in the comment section right below this video. You click on that, it opens up, and they'll all be linked down there individually with Amazon links that takes you straight out to Amazon. I've made it nice and easy for you. I know a lot of these are kind of early, like most of these Blu-rays I'm going to get to later on are early reviews. This one did come out this week. It's just taking me a little bit longer to get to it. That's why, like I said, I go through these as fast as I possibly can. But the Blu-rays are going to be several weeks in advance. So those links down there, depending on when you're going to be watching this video, that'll let you order or pre-order any of these titles I'm talking about. It makes it nice and easy for all of you. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to give this video a like and a thumbs up for me. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. That way you never miss out on any of this exclusive content that I create here on my YouTube channel. Now, talking about some other differences between this new 4K versus the Criterion Collection. A lot of people always ask, hey, is it worth buying it over if I already own that Criterion Collection? Well, image-wise, there's some other things that kind of added to why I think this looks so much better as well. This did have a very healthy average bitrate. It hovered in the 80s, the low 80s, continually throughout it, and the average was right around, I think it was like 81, 82 when I got the average through it. I mean, it was really nicely done, and I think that added so much better to how this overall looked and helped the stability of it throughout the entire time you're watching. I mean, other than obviously the obvious things like with the grain that I talked about. Now, do keep in mind, for those of you that hate grain, I don't know why you do, if you're a cinephile or you love classic films or films in general, you should not hate film grain, because it's intentionally there from the original film elements and camera negatives that you don't want it scrubbed out. Well, I'm happy to report they did not scrub it out or DNR it out or neat it out. The program neat was not used on this at all. The film grain looks very nice throughout it, and like I said, it is much more stable than what they had on the original Criterion release. So Kino did a better job with that. Though I will say, it is still going to have some small smudges that are still there. It's just, there's a lot less of them on this than there was on Criterion. So it's levels of improvements that this did get quite a large drastic increase of improvements with all the things they fixed over even what Criterion did. And I thought Criterion looked good before. Now the film's presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.66 to 1. They didn't change it, edit it down, or change that at all, so that's good news. And as far as the film goes, it did come out in 1957, and it's a pretty fast-paced war film. It's about 88 minutes long, and it is one of those things that kind of just dives into Kirk Douglas's character and a lot of generals and things like that having to do with the war, and talking about that basically sometimes commands would come down that a general wanted to be this great general. I did this amazing feat because I sent so many men up this hill and did such great things. And they don't consider the repercussions of the men that have to follow out that order and their lives, and if the order should have even been given, because it's an unachievable or unattainable command. Like sending enemies straight into gunfire that literally they're running straight at it. Is that something that should be done if you already know that they're not going to achieve anything except get wiped off the board or killed? And it just kind of brings those thoughts to mind, and that's kind of the whole idea behind it. It really does make you think. I love war films. I love Kirk Douglas. And this film by Stanley Kubrick, if you've ever watched a lot of Stanley Kubrick films, and I've talked about him in previous reviews that I've done here on this YouTube channel, and they've been doing a great job with them on 4K, but he has a great, like, his cinematographer and camera work really just was ahead of its time. And that's where I really feel like Stanley Kubrick stuff is underappreciated by a lot of people, because they say, well, it's a black and white film and I don't watch black and white films. I want all these Marvel or action superhero films. You're really missing out on some amazing pieces of cinema that didn't have to have those, but they had these big set pieces of war that were done so well that you really felt like you were there in the trenches with them, and really felt like you could feel the anxiety they had of what was going to happen if they ran out of these trenches. And I think it's a very well done film and an enjoyable film. Now, as far as the difference between the HDR10 and Dolby Vision, in this case, because it's a black and white film, I really couldn't see any difference between the HDR10 and Dolby Vision transfers at all that they put on this for the HDR grading on it. I thought they both looked very, very similar and both looked really, really good. They did add more depth to the film because of the lights to darks and the different varying shades that the Blu-ray never had. That did make it seem much more of a deeper image than a lot of the times black and white films do look on Blu-ray, which is where I really feel like HDR and the 4K representations, if done right, can really enhance a black and white film that people don't realize until they get to 4K content that's set up correctly with a correct home entertainment system that has been calibrated and things like that. You can really see so much more, not only with the image being a native 4K, but depth in that image because of the HDR that wasn't present on those Blu-rays, which is why I think it adds a lot of extra bonuses to having that HDR Dolby Vision and HDR10 grading that really added to this new 4K scan. Now, talking about collectability here. Now, as I always talk about, I always try to get all of my copies from like Kino, Lorber, Arrow Video, any of these that have like slipcovers, Shout Factory, Scream Factory. I really like collecting slipcovers. They're something that I've really gotten into. A long time ago, I probably would have said, oh, I didn't care. But as time has gone on, I really just like the slipcovers, especially on Kino Lorber's releases, because they look so good when you display them all together. It says on the side here, 4K MGM, Paths of Glory. Then on the back, it obviously talks about the film. I will touch on the special features between the Criterion Collection, though. This is very limited. And I'll give you an example. You get an audio commentary, you get a bunch of trailers, obviously the trailer of this, and then some other films that basically Stanley Kubrick's done that Kino Lorber's released on 4K. And that's basically it. There's nothing else special feature-wise. Now, on the Criterion Collection, it obviously had a lot more special features. That is what made the Criterion Collection something that I would say don't get rid of for that reason. If you like special features, you're going to want to have that one, but the image on this and the sound quality is where your upgrade comes from. That you're going to watch it on this and enjoy the visual upgrade, but you're going to watch the special features on your Criterion Collection. So in my opinion, they both go hand in hand. If you're a true collector that you want the film on the best quality, you're going to get it on 4K, but at the same time you want all the special features, you're going to want to have the Criterion Collection. Now, getting inside here, it does have a nice reversible slipcover. I really like when they do that. I think Kino Lorber's doing a good job adding little extra things for collectors, because you get these two options. This is the one that I switched around so you could see it. This is the other option for the reversible slipcover that's on the inside. I always switch them around so there's one of each. I like to have both options available, but I do like the options of having both slipcovers on here. Obviously, it talks about on the same back and cover art that's on the back of the outside slipcover. Now, when you get inside, you do have your 4K disc here. You don't get a Blu-ray because remember, Criterion Collection has the rights for the Blu-ray, so that's why there's a Blu-ray. This is only the 4K Ultra HD release. Now, I did test it exclusively, as I always do for my worldwide audience. This is 100% region free. There's no region coding or region locking, so you can import this or buy this through that link I've posted below in the description section or as a pinned comment down below. And it'll ship anywhere worldwide from that link that I posted below in the comment section and description section below. But it is region free, so you can enjoy this anywhere worldwide in the best quality that Paths of Glory has ever looked. Now, audio-wise, I briefly touched on that. The audio did sound better to me than it did on the Criterion. And I'm guessing that's having to do because of obviously the new scan and things. They went and reworked it a little bit more. You do get a DTS HD Master Audio 2.0 in English. That's your audio option for it, with English subtitles, but that's it. You do not get any other subtitle or audio options. That is all that's available on this. But the audio did sound a little better. The Criterion one, they did a lot of work to fix basically where there was ruffling in the audio or audio errors. And again, I feel like this is where Kino Lorber just kind of stepped in, and I'm thinking they took the work that Criterion had started with and basically did a new scan and worked with what they had and went beyond that. And that's where this even sounds and looks better. The sound on it was really nicely an improvement. There was more bass behind it than what the Criterion collection had. So even though it's not going to be a full surround that goes all around you like a 7.1 mix or an Atmos or things like that, it still did sound better, appreciable difference than what you had on Criterion. Now, getting to my review score for Paths of Glory. As I said, I really enjoy war films. I think Stanley Kubrick did a great job with this one, and it is something that makes you really comprehend and think of the casualties and the thoughts that go behind some decisions in war. And it's just a good film overall. If you haven't experienced it, it is something that I recommend to people, because it's a completely different aspect of war while still giving you that sense that you're really there with them. My review score for Kino Lorber's 4K Ultra HD release of Paths of Glory is an outstanding 9.4. This is a must-buy and something you need to pick up and add to your collection. The price they released at's a great price. I mean, Kino Lorber's been doing a great job with these anyways. They don't overcharge for them and charge you $40, $50 like I've seen a lot of companies. A lot of the times maybe Disney and some of those that they don't really give you as much as you should hope for, and they're charging $29.99, $39.99. And in this case, their upgrade was very noticeable and worthwhile, that it's worth the price they charge for this, especially because adding it to, if you already own the Criterion collection, you have that for your special features. Obviously get an audio commentary on this, but man, does it look so much better even than what Criterion did, that made it that much of a fun upgrade that I really was glad that I got to add this to my collection and watch it, because it sometimes feels like with a lot of these 4Ks, if done right, it really is like watching them for the first time, especially on a really nice 4K TV and display. Man, it just comes out, you see so much more in it that you start to notice little things that you just never noticed in their uniforms or basically behind them, and that depth of detail that shines through. Really was nicely done on this. 9.4, you gotta pick up and add this one to your collection, because it really is a worthwhile upgrade, and Kino Lorber knocking it out of the park again. I really am excited for their next 4K release to see how they do with that one, because again, another worthwhile upgrade from Kino Lorber. Now, if you haven't checked out a bunch of my other 4K reviews of Kino Lorber titles, I've done dozens of them over the years. I've done Misery and Silence of the Lambs, and the list goes on. But anyhow, if you haven't checked out any of those, there's dozens of those for you to dive into, Touch of Evil, and on the list goes. I've been reviewing them and testing them out for years. You can always go onto my channel here, and you can go through and you can find all those reviews and watch them, and there's tons of different things to dive into, explore if you've just started diving into Kino Lorber's releases. But there's a lot of things you'll find that they're doing a good job on. So those are some things you might want to check out after you get done watching this review. Now also, if you enjoy this content I create on my YouTube channel here, make sure to join my Collectors VIP Club. That helps to support this channel, and that's how I'm able to afford to keep creating all this exclusive 4K versus Blu-ray image comparisons that nobody else wants to take the time to do, because it's very expensive and it's very time consuming to create all this content that all of you enjoy watching. And the only way I can continue to create any of this content is always through all of you, my viewers' support. So make sure, if you enjoy this content, join my Collectors VIP Club, or give us super thanks down below through the super thanks button that's down below. Even if you can only give a couple of dollars, that's all it costs to join my Collectors VIP Club, and that helps to support this channel so I can keep creating all of this high-level content that all of you love watching. Also, make sure if you're going to pick up any of these releases, you click down through the description section below, the links down there, or through the pinned comment in the comment section below. It takes you straight out to Amazon. That's at no extra charge to you. Next up, we've got Bright Victory, and this is a 1951 World War II drama. And here's why this film is very unique in its own. It takes place with basically the main character getting injured in war and losing his vision, going to the hospitals, and it takes place with basically his preconceived ideas and how basically we sometimes treat people based on either wrongly and preconceived ideas or thoughts we might have, whether we assume someone's unkind, or whether we assume they look a certain way or act a certain way, or because they do a certain thing. And the whole thing is based on discovering and exploring the concept of redemption, and redemption through basically finding that people are kind to us and they love us and treat us a way that we're not treating them. And it's all based upon the idea of this guy that's blind, and he's basically learning that he needs the help of others, and maybe help from some people that basically he didn't like originally or didn't want anything to do with. And it's a really well done film, and really does kind of tug on your heartstrings and gets to you just realizing how sometimes we do the same things maybe in smaller scope, but it's done over the scope of World War II. And it's a very enjoyable film. I did enjoy it. Now, talking about the transfer on this though, it does still retain quite a bit of tears and rips and smudges, and I think that's inherent to basically the film itself was not stored well, it was not kept well, it's heavily damaged. So unless they spent millions of dollars on a restoration, there is a lot of things throughout it you will notice. There's tears throughout the screens that'll show up and things throughout that. So don't expect it to be a perfect transfer, but it is a nice looking 1080p HD. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a nice film. It was my first time ever watching this, and it is one of those that I thought, hey, that was a really fun film. Now it runs 97 minutes. It does have English subtitles on it, and it does have a DTS HD Master Stereo audio mix on it. And it was fine. I'm not going to say it was amazing. It definitely wasn't anywhere near as good as like Paths of Glory was in any shape or form. But you could hear it, but it is an older film. So because it didn't get on a massive remaster on the audio mix, there is some times where I did have to strain just slightly to hear some of the dialogue some of the time. Now for Bright Victory, my review score for Bright Victory on Blu-ray is a 7.8. It's a good release. I did enjoy the film, and I do think it's a great one to have in the collection, especially if you like World War II dramas, kind of taken from a different side of World War II. It definitely is something to sit back, you enjoy the film, and at the end you do feel like you learned something and gained something from watching the film. So that's where I felt like it was a worthwhile addition. Now, the reason it got a 7.8 obviously is because of it's just not absolutely amazing looking all the time, because there is still tears and smudges throughout it. They did the best they could. It looks nice. Next up we've got So Proudly We Hail, and this came out in 1943, and it is quite a bit longer of a film. It runs about 126 minutes. But I will be honest with you, as far as a film goes, I really enjoyed this. It has an ensemble cast in it. I'm not going to go through every way that's in it, but there's so many gals and male actors and things like that throughout it. It's another World War II film that takes place on the side of the Army nurses and what they went through on the front lines, helping those that were injured, and I mean even going into battle to help those that are injured, and was such a beautiful piece of just showing the other side of sometimes what we forget in war, that there was females that went in there and were literally on the front lines with those that were dying. I mean, there was some times that they were worried they were going to die or got captured, or worried they were going to get shot or things like that. And so I did like it, and my wife really liked the idea of how it came from a different side of it. The actresses in this were wonderful. I really thought they represented, especially Claudette Colbert was outstanding in this. I really thought she did a phenomenal job, just overall selling the idea of her character and the portrayal of all they saw and all they did and the people that they were helping. And you care for these men and the horrible things they went through and the emotions and romance and things like that that would happen that went on during World War II. And just overall, what a great movie. I really enjoyed the film itself. Now this obviously is 1080p HD, and as far as the transfer on this, I actually thought this looked a bit better than what Bright Victory did by quite a bit. I think maybe the actual film was stored better and was handled better. It didn't have as many huge tears that I noticed that Bright Victory had. It did look better, I thought, overall with the transfer on this release. Now, this does have English subtitles, and you do get a DTS HD Master Audio Stereo mix on it. So the audio mix on this, though, is one of those that There is times you have to strain to hear, and that seems to be a lot of the times with a lot of these older movies. Sometimes it's just the way it is. I mean, they didn't have as good of audio equipment as we do nowadays, that sometimes you do have to turn it up a little louder to kind of hear what they're saying, and it's kind of one of those things you maybe turn it up and down a little bit more throughout the film. But that's kind of par for the course for a lot of these older movies, especially some of the times when they come out on Blu-ray and things like that. They do a lot of work with them, but it's obviously not going to be something like a full restoration you might get if they spent millions of dollars, like with Paths of Glory, for example. But it does sound good, and I did enjoy the film. That regardless of that, the film was so enjoyable throughout it and looked really nicely done on 1080p that it was enjoyable. Now, again, remember, it does have some film damage. You will notice it because of the age of the film. Now, showing you what you get inside these Blu-rays. They're all very similar, so I'm not going to show every single one of them. You have the standard Kino Lorber disc with the title of the movie listed on it. Now, I will touch on this as well. As always, I exclusively test every single release I do, every single time for all of you worldwide. Every single one of these Blu-rays, though, not the 4K that I reviewed at the beginning, only these 3 Blu-rays at the end here, they are Region A locked. Every one of them I tested in every single Blu-ray player. All of my Region A, Region B, Region C, Region Free, Multi-Region, every single one of them, it is Region A locked. So you will need, if you live outside of Region A or US or Canada, you will need a Region Free or Multi-Region player. Talked about them dozens of times over the years. I've done reviews on them here on my YouTube channel. If you want to check that stuff out, I have tons of videos on that that explains all about that. But the Blu-rays, these actual Blu-rays are Region A locked. Now, my review score for So Proudly We Hail. I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was really one of those great pieces to sit back and watch. That is really something I think everybody needs to see from a different side of World War II. So my review score for this Blu-ray release from Kino Lorber of So Proudly We Hail, this gets a great 8.3. This is something I do think that you need to pick up, watch, and add to your collection. If you like World War II films, if you like just good stories, acting, this is one of those I do recommend adding to your collection. 8.3 is a great review score for this release on Blu-ray, and is something I recommend watching if you haven't seen it yet and you love classic movies with a lot of great classic actresses in it. This is a fun and really well done movie. Now, getting to the last one here. The Extreme Adventures of Super Dave. Now, this film came out in 2000 and it's 91 minutes long. And I'll touch on that for a minute. It actually goes on, in my opinion, about 30 minutes too long. Now, I'll explain what I mean by that. The Adventures of Super Dave is kind of like a slapstick, kind of body humor. And what I mean by body humor is like something blows up that would normally kill somebody and slams them into a car, and it's done humorously. Or like a rat flies into his mouth and he's like gagging on it, or he flies through the roof and breaks the roof, which would break someone's neck. Or but it's done like kind of like that slapstick, kind of like Jim Carrey's earlier humor, but not as funny. Now, I enjoyed it a little bit, and here's what I mean by it. My kids and things like that enjoy that slapstick humor a whole lot more, and they laugh a whole lot more. I'm just not going to say it was amazing. It's not something that I'm going to sit down and watch over and over and over again and say, this is the #1 film I got to pick up. This I got to watch over and over. But people have different varying degrees of what they enjoy. I found it semi-clean. It wasn't too bad. It's rated PG. It was kind of just, like I said, kind of like just over-the-top body harm humor is how I kind of explain it. And all these varying things just keep happening over and over and kind of escalating, that he gets more and more injured, thrown out this window, thrown out that car, crashes into this car. And that kind of goes on for a while, and you find it entertaining for, like I said, about maybe 60 minutes. But then like the last 30 minutes of it, you feel like, man, it's kind of gone on too long. Though the kids, they enjoyed it the whole time. So you never know. You might enjoy it and love it the whole time because you really love that kind of slapstick humor. Kind of like Jackass almost, but without Jackass being like, obviously as crass. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but kind of that kind of stuff. Like they get hurt, but not in a realistic way in this. He's not hurt realistically. It's kind of just done for humor. You do get English subtitles on this, and you do get DTS HD Master Audio Stereo Mix on this in English as well, so you get that available. And it is, like I said, one of those films that, as you can see here, he slams into a tree as the motorcycle's going by. And it's funny, it's enjoyable, but it's not one of those I'm going to pick up and watch over and over again. So for my review score for The Extreme Adventures of Super Dave on Blu-ray, this one transfer-wise, audio-wise, movie-wise gets a 6.2. I really felt like the transfer on it in 1080p HD was soft. I mean, it just was a soft Blu-ray. Now, I don't know how originally it was filmed, if that's the way it was intentionally filmed, but it just is not an amazingly sharp transfer overall. It's just a soft looking one. So that kind of added to everything. The audio was fine, but nothing to write home about. The transfer was fine, nothing to write home about. It wasn't amazing and just all around a great looking transfer either. So that's where it does get that 6.2. But it is something, if you're excited about this film or you love this film, you can pick it up. I put that link down below in the description section below. There wasn't anything huge about it that was just horrible. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and I'm always going to be honest with all of you. Any of these you want to pick up after watching this review, make sure to click down there below. It takes you straight out to Amazon and makes it nice and easy for you to order or buy any of these. Now, like I did say at the beginning, huge shout out and thank you to Kino Lorber for sending these to me for review. I always love diving into new things for all of you, sharing my thoughts on them, kind of giving you an idea of what you should buy, what you should skip, what you should add to your collection. Make sure to start that conversation in the comment section below. Let me know what of these you're excited to buy or add to your collection. What of these you're excited that are coming up. I know these are coming out here in a couple of weeks, so these are a little early. Also, give a like, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification if you haven't done so already. I had a fun time with this one today. I hope you enjoyed this new little format, throwing in some mini reviews, getting you some more content in each one of these reviews. I hope all of you have a blessed day, and I've always got something new and exciting coming out very soon.